Hey there, everybody. You are listening or watching to another edition of But Before We Go. My name is Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Steve Hunt, and I'm sorry for laughing, Bill, but we went straight from pregame to recording, and I would say people should, we should like put our pregame up, but maybe not.
No, but to share, I am now nobility. I am now an actual knight. And the details of that will go to another episode because we do need to discuss psychoses at some point. I'm not sure when that point is. Anyway, folks, you are watching or listening to the podcast by Gen X, about Gen X, for everybody. And today's topic, Steve, as we know, we are in the month of September, and the month of September would bring with it some annual rituals. And Steve, I just don't find the annual ritual to be so much of a thing anymore because, so many things are online now. They're always available, they're always accessible. You can always look stuff up. But back in our day, back in the 70s, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, there were times of year where certain pieces of information were disclosed to you only at certain times a year. And if you didn't get that information, you were out of luck until the next time that information rolled around. And sometimes that went for another year. And so I will bring to you the quintessentially American culture of what we used to call the white pages and the yellow pages, the Great American Telephone Directory, the phone book. These things, there used to be AT&T in the US, American Telegraph and Telephone. And then in the 80s, it was split up into smaller companies, several across the United States. And around every September, um, somebody, I never understood who, I thought it was the phone book fairy, would deliver at the end of the driveway of each house or on their step um, the phone books. And you
Mhm.
got your new white pages, which were the residential listings for your metropolitan area. And you got the yellow pages, which were the business listings for your metropolitan area. So if you're fixing dinner on a weekend night or on a weeknight and your oven doesn't work,
Mhm.
you go into the yellow pages and look for nearby repair people in your area. If you meet a cool person at a bar on a Friday night and you fail to get their telephone number, maybe you forget, and you want to call them Saturday and say, "Hey, do you remember me?" You went to the phone book. You went to the white pages on Saturday and you hope that person was in there. If that person did not live in your area, you were out of luck. You didn't Google them. You called 411, which was the number for information in your area. And actually, you had to call the information line for the area code in which that person lived and see if you could find their phone number. Um, Being in the phone directory became a odd, bizarre of the way of belonging in American culture, witnessed by the classic line from Steve Martin in The Jerk when the new phone book came and he was so happy to see his name in print that he belonged. He was part of the community and he was jumping up and down, dancing, yelling, "It's here, the new phone book's here," because he was in it.
Mhm.
It became important to be listed in the phone book. It meant that you were somebody who people wanted to talk to. Steve, am I wrong And am I just putting all sorts of, self-doubt and self-esteem issues out there and bearing them for the public at this point? Or did you have similar feelings and impressions?
Well, I don't know if we had the same excitement as Steve Martin, but it certainly was a ritual to write a passage. And you're right about things coming out at a certain time of year. And this will be my get off my lawn moment, I suppose. But when I go into a store after the 4th of July and I'm seeing Halloween stuff, it just yanks my chain. But that's a whole other subject. Back to the phone book. Several things that I remember about the phone book. And oh, by the way, Bill, ours was hyper local. We got ours from C&P Telephone. So
Oh, not even Bell Atlantic.
no, we were C&P Telephone in South Prince George's County, Chesapeake and Potomac. So we got our and to those who don't understand the whole idea behind the white pages and the yellow pages, the white pages book, the pages were literally white. The yellow pages book, the pages were literally yellow. So in case you were wondering why they came up with those names, those were the colors of the books. So the first thing that I can say about when the phone book arrived that you had to be aware of is number one, it just got dropped. And you're right, we didn't know who because we knew that there was a newspaper delivery person who delivered the newspaper. Don't know who the hell delivered the phone book.
No.
Number two, they were not in a nice, neat shrink wrap package. They just kind of got. Some people just threw them. Other people placed them. I mean, we'd find them in the middle of the driveway. Because they did not fit in the mailbox because they were too big. So
Well, you couldn't put them in the mailbox anyway,
right,
because it's against U.S. federal law to
oh, I
put
did not know
stuff
that.
that's not mail in the U.S. mailbox.
Yeah, but this whole porch thing of which you speak, we had none of that. It typically it was just next to the mailbox. But if somebody was in a hurry, it ended up in the driveway. So you had to find it where you found it. So that's the second thing. The third thing is God help you if it rains that day because they don't stop the delivery. And if it's a downpour, your book is hosed, man. So those are the things that I remember about the book itself. And then the only other thing I'll mention as far as belonging in the phone book, one of the cool things about my family growing up is my dad, my late father, his name was Alex Hunt. And he did not have a middle name. It was a thing with his family in Tennessee. As he would say, middle names are a waste of time. How often do you use the damn things? So we were always the first Hunt in the phone book because it was Hunt, first name Alex, no middle initial. So if somebody asked me about, hey, I need to call you and I didn't have anything to write down, I was like, just look it up in the phone book. We're the first Hunt. So that was us. We were the first Hunt in our area. So that was always my thing. I would tell people it's the first Hunt in the book. Give us a call. So those are my memories. And my favorite again was we are the first Hunt in the book. That was kind of cool.
So, well, I remember getting wet phone books, and you just had to let that sucker dry out.
Well,
And
you had
if
to
it
hope that
took
it didn't get
2, 3
stuck.
days, if it took 2, 3 days, that's what it took. A lot of times the phone book came in a bag, but not all the time. But you're
Mhm.
right, to your point. I can remember at least one year my grandmother telling me, go run down to the driveway and get the phone book, Billy, before it gets wet. I do remember that because it was supposed to thunderstorm that afternoon. Get the phone book before it gets wet. Like the phone book was some super important package, which it kind of was, because I can remember years where the phone book didn't come, or like neighbors, where there was a cluster of mailboxes for us and for neighbors. Maybe somebody took two phone books. Maybe not enough phone books were dropped, but there was an occasion or two when we didn't get a phone book and all that was bad. Then you actually had to write people's phone numbers. If they weren't in that year's phone book, you actually had to write them somewhere, normally on the cover of the phone book. Phone book also had all sorts of information that you never thought you needed. You got, for example, a map. of the US and Canada
Hmm.
and Puerto Rico, Alaska, Hawaii, which, would indicate the time zones,
Yep.
the area codes, what area codes corresponded to what. You got statistical data on the phone company, how many customers are there, you got to know about your charges, like how much did it cost you to add a second line into your home or to call a service. You were reminded of the time, and this is another part of the numbers, and this is another podcast altogether. The numbers that you would call for the weather and the time. Yes, yes. You had call a number, and the number would tell you what time it was.
Hmm.
The number, and there would be another number that would tell you what the weather was going to be for the day.
Hmm.
What the heck? So, I mean, the phone book was essential. And then, yes, the yellow pages, listed all of those businesses. What was hard about the yellow pages was that you needed to understand how the people who put together the yellow pages thought.
Yes.
Because if you're looking for, say, a business to do construction, you know, well, they could be under construction companies, but
Hmm.
they could also be under contractors. They could be under bricklayers. They could be under asphalt, because they also did driveways. They could be under anything. And there was no alphabetical listing of like all the businesses. It was subdivided alphabetically by profession or type of business. It was a mess. And then later on in our Gen Xness came forth the blue pages, which I believe were contained within the white pages, which
Hmm.
gave you listings of government offices.
Hmm.
And so it was an essential reference book to get through daily life.
Yeah, there's a good point about the yellow pages and how they listed businesses, and you did have to be able to crack the code. Now, some businesses, because you had to pay to be in the yellow pages to advertise.
Right.
So some businesses who I guess had enough money to do it, like you said, a general construction company that did several things, they'd list themselves in several places so that you could definitely find them. So if you screwed up and you were looking under, I don't know, drywall, I don't know if that was a subject, but instead of construction, you could find them in both sections. And then I also remember, I don't know if your book did this later on, Bill, but in the yellow pages, besides the blue section, they also created a section where all the businesses were listed in alphabetical order. So if you knew what you were looking for, like if you were looking for All Pro drywall, you could go to that back section and just get All Pro drywall as opposed to finding it in the second. Now you could still, old school, you always did it that way. You could look under the type of business, but there was a listing towards the back that had all the businesses that were in the yellow pages in alphabetical order. I don't know if you guys ever got that or not.
Now, see, that was a later edition.
Right. That was the upgrade. that
Yeah,
was version 3.0.
yeah. To me, I perceive that change as being something that they did once people started getting cell phones, and you used to start to be able to call information via your cell phone company, and they would have nationwide listings. Oh,
Mhm.
well, we'll just give them the business names in alphabetical order. That'll make it easier for them. Not as easy as just putting up three
Yeah.
digits and saying, "Hey, I need this number." So that was the thing. Steve, the last thing I'm going to say on this topic, and this kind of shows that sometimes how, while I consider myself a quite intelligent person, I can be simple. It literally was sitting here in this podcast when I thought to myself, now I understood why you couldn't find the businesses because they would buy ads only under one category as opposed to multiple. literally, as I was saying my last bit about being able to crack the code, did I think of, oh, wait a minute, those businesses put in multiple ads.
Mhm.
Now I get it. And then you just said it, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, I know that now. Something's not right with me. But speaking of not right, almost as bad as the awaiting for the new phone book would be the heralding of the holiday shopping season. And hmm, holiday shopping in the United States has again become a extended process. We spoke last episode about political campaigns and how those are extended processes.
Mhm.
Holiday shopping has become no different. Right after July 4th, for example, did you once start to see Halloween decorations in the stores? Uh, Christmas ornaments for this December could have been ordered in the spring, in
Mhm.
April and May. Um, However, the month of September, back in a day before online shopping, where one actually went to a thing called a department store and shopped for their suits, their dresses, their household goods, their sporting goods, their toys, camping equipment, guns, you know, stuff for your car, everything under the sun that you would need to live American life, um, was contained. Well, only a few people had it.
Mhm.
Nationwide, there was Sears Roebuck and Company,
Oh yeah.
um, J.C. Penney.
Mhm.
Um, there are other regional to national department stores. Montgomery Ward
Yep.
at the
Yep.
time, which was located in Chicago and also in Baltimore, and I believe they were nationwide, at least for a while. Um, Macy's,
Mhm.
locally in Baltimore, Washington area, there was the Heck Company
Oh
and
yeah.
Woodward and Lothrop, Woody's.
Or and Hex, by the way.
Um,
We never said the Heck Company. It was just Hex.
yeah,
Hex and
in
Woody's.
Philadelphia area, there was Strawbridges.
Mhm.
And there were many others. Now all of those like regional companies, Hex, Macy's, Strawbridge, all of those are now under the auspices of the May Company, and they may operate under various nameplates. But the thing is, Steve, every September they would put forth their holiday catalog.
Mhm.
You would not see the holiday wares in stores
Mm.
until like maybe November, maybe right around just before Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
But, you know, and I remember sometimes stores would close on the day before Thanksgiving
Mhm.
and not open until Monday. And then they were all decked out for the holidays. And it
Mhm.
was like they were transformed.
Right.
But if you wanted your holiday goods, you looked at the Sears catalog, you looked at the Montgomery Ward's catalog, and those were the two that came to our home without fail. And you reached, you went to the middle of the catalog, you tore out your paper order form at which you wrote down the code number, the quantity, the description of the item, the unit price, and the total price. You added it all up, you calculated the shipping and handling, and you either wrote a check for it or indicated your credit card number, folded that bad boy up in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and sent it in. And that's what you did. And you couldn't just run to Kinko's if you made a mistake with your order form because you got one order form. And if you messed up, well, then you better hope that you can jerry rig yourself something, to write out on 8.5 by 11 white line paper what your order was and hope that they understand it. That's the way we roll. But there was just this huge coolness factor
Mhm.
in seeing all the new stuff because you didn't also see the new stuff in stores. You didn't also see the new stuff online. You can order in September what you wouldn't see until November, and you liked it.
Mhm. Absolutely. And Bill, as a kid, I will throw one more catalog or magazine or book at you. Toys R Us. That was game planning
Oh,
right there, baby.
yes. Yes, that was huge.
That was game planning for us as kids because
Oh, yes. How did I forget Toys R Us? Yeah, we got that.
yeah, the world's greatest toy store, baby. Jeffrey, my man. But yeah, I mean that was all about pre-planning. So when these things all came in, my parents would say, okay, the magazines are in. Start thinking about what you want, and we would go through the magazines, especially the Toys R Us one, and sometimes we would do it as a group, me and my three brothers, or other times it would be like, okay, brother number one, oldest to youngest, Kevin, put your stuff down, and Rodney, and we would literally have to circle the item and write our name next to it because that was the thing that we wanted. And obviously, my mom and dad, to keep some element of surprise, would say, hey, put down everything you can think of, and we'll, you'll get some of what's on your list. So it wasn't a five things you get five things. It was 10 you get five. You don't know which five you're going to get, but that was a whole ritual. Um, it was a whole thing to go through, and then obviously the Ward's catalog and the Sears was a big one for us. But you're absolutely right. There are some things that my mom would want to order ahead of time, so she didn't have to worry about maybe they run out of something that she may have wanted when it's available, like you said, after Thanksgiving. And you're right; these were the pre Black Friday days, so most stores shut down at the very least Thanksgiving Day and the day after, and then you would come in Saturday, maybe at the earliest. But you're right; some stores were later, and it was a winter wonderland. It was a transformation. It was itself a ritual. I remember going to the old Landover Mall the Saturday after Thanksgiving just to walk around, just to see what they had done. There was some shopping that mom had to do or dad had to do, so that was cool too. But a lot of it was just let's see what they did. Look at what they did in the stores. Look at what they did in the areas, the concourse areas between the stores, and how the mall decorated itself. It was a thing, man. It was a whole thing, and we loved it. And again, you would also maybe see some stuff walking around the mall, and my mom would have a pen and notepad in her purse, and if you saw something and you pointed it out, she would write it down and add it to the whole list of things that are being requested. So yeah, it was an annual ritual and a big freaking deal. Absolutely.
So here are two things I remember from this that maybe you could opine upon if you remember them too. One, sometimes you were SOL with your order. And I mean, you were SOL in October. If you sent your order in sometimes in like late October,
Mhm.
I mean, you would wind up getting a letter, not a phone call. You would get a letter with a number to call. And these items were out of stock or are not going to be able to be fulfilled. And in like my cases, there were like video games that the producer decided not to come out with for the Atari or had
Mhm.
delayed or whatever. And if you were lucky, you got a notice of a back order. But if you weren't lucky, you were just out of luck and you had to call and reference your order number and discuss how you wanted to deal with the items. The other thing is, Steve, I remember in those catalogs, everything was rack rate. There was no discount. They didn't have items that were from leftover from the spring and the summer that now we're going to sell you at clearance. Oh no, they sold you the stuff for fall and winter. I mean, they had like a small amount of spring and summer stuff on because of course, there's people in warmer climates, and
Mhm.
so they might want bathing suits in November and December and January, or they may make, good holiday gifts. But oh no, you never saw final sale of 75% off of last year's items. The hell with that. There wasn't any last year's items. There was this year's items. And that's what you bought.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember an SOL experience, and I think that might be why my mom was smart enough to say, "Give me a big list, and you'll get stuff off of the list." Because I think she anticipated that she might get that note back and say, "Okay, he's asked for 10 things. I'm giving him 5, and item number 9 is not available. Oops. Oh well." So I'm thinking that was part of her strategy to cover her behind and my dad's in case something, like you said, didn't get made or it there was a run on it very quickly. Yeah, any of the hot new toys and later electronics, you had to order those because if they hit the store on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, you better be there. Because if you weren't, um, like I remember what the weekend after Thanksgiving going to Landover Mall, you were if you weren't there at opening, you were in the far reaches of that parking lot because people packed it because they were in there to get it. I guess you could say that was Black Friday back then. For those who were going to go in store to get stuff, they were trying to jump on it quickly. But yeah, you're absolutely right that um, there was a lot of that as far as you know, and I guess they would put a note, not available in all stores or not available in all locations, which I'm assuming now covers the bathing suit you might order in Maine, and they might say not available up here. Whereas if you order it in Alabama, you're good because it's hot as hell still. Um, but yeah, it was a bum's rush on stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
my mom I always thought she was organized by the fact that Christmas shopping was done so early. Like early December, she was done. But I think a lot of it was stuff ordered and stuff she ran out to the store to get before it ran the hell out.
Well, so you brought up a thing I'll touch on momentarily, which is that there were catalogs at other times of the year. There
Sure.
was the spring catalog for the white sale, which was a
Mhm.
lot of bed things, sheets and whatnot. And then there was the summer catalog, which would be your summer items, your bathing suits and such. But there was never any of this crap of, oh, the first 60 pages of the 900-page catalog, and it would be 900 pages,
Mhm.
was stuff that we couldn't sell during the year that's now going on clearance. Individual stores had those racks if you
Mhm.
went in there, but it wasn't a thing that the central store offered. Steve, I can remember a couple years ago, I flew to England for a football game,
Mhm.
and in Heathrow Airport, as I was waiting for my plane, there's an Harrods outlet,
Hmm.
and they were celebrating, the release of their 2024 Harrods Bear. And it just come out earlier in the week, and it was October, and they had just changed the store over to their Christmas posture, their holiday posture,
Mhm.
for the end of the year. I'm going to get back to a thing I said before, and this is going to kind of be my last word on the matter. I hate how damn commercial this holiday shopping competition is between all these outlets. Yes, you and I had the same experience. These damn stores weren't open on Thanksgiving. They weren't open on the Friday after. Maybe they were open on Saturday, and when you did, you got excited.
Mhm.
Not just excited to buy stuff, but excited for the holiday. It made you start to look forward to it. Now, you have Prime Day in the middle of July.
Mhm.
You have a pricing cycle that you can monitor pretty much any online retailer and know that when you're going to get their best prices of the season. You know that in general, January and July are those times because retailers are massively switching out their inventories. and then by like February and August, then that's when things truly hit rock bottom.
Mhm.
Um, and it's not that much fun anymore to
No.
go shopping. Shopping is not an experience. And I don't know what can be done to change that. And I really, have hated making this podcast say, well, things are so much better now than they were then, or then than they were now. Sorry, sort of experience. But damn it, we do miss something from that, don't we?
We do, and it's funny as it there's been a change from brick and mortar to online. My son is classic for his random thoughts. He probably gets it from me because I have them all the time. But he had a random thought. I think it was around Christmas last year, and he was talking about how he used to love when we would go through the Toys R Us because when he was a kid, there were still Toys R Us stores. The one in Columbia, which no longer exists, and he just kind of. I think we might have been in that area, but he was kind of talking about, Dad, that used to be fun. And I was like, son, when I was home with you guys, every once in a while we would just go through the Toys R Us and check stuff out, and maybe if you guys were good, you'd get like a small toy. But so even my 16-year-old is talks about how cool that was to just walk through and just see all the stuff laid out and running around. So I, I'm with you, Bill. Don't want to go there and make this some sort of value statement or judgment statement or whatever, but there was something about it, and there was something about the way it was sequenced to where they became events. Because I don't know about you, but in my house, the Friday after Thanksgiving was leftovers and college football because you had plenty of Thanksgiving leftovers, and that was usually the beginning of rivalry weekend. You would get, I think Friday you would get like Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, Texas A&M, and then the Michigan, Ohio State, USC, UCLA would follow on Saturday. But so now you get pro football on Thanksgiving night, so it's just a different situation. Maybe it's better now because it's more convenient, but I'm with you. I miss the events. I really do.
You get pro football now on Black Friday.
Yeah, that's true. On Prime.
So that's right, to come full circle.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you for joining us through this trot through the decades and the experiences of telephone directories and store catalogs. Two things which have gone the way of the dodo, which were iconic within the time of Generation X, but alas, are now artifacts of a bygone age. For
It's
Steve Hunt,
all
what's
digital.
that?
It's all digital.
It is all digital. And for Steve Hunt, my name is Bill Woodcock. You have been watching or listening to this episode of But Before We Go. We'll talk to you again next week. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.